Through your Friday. That was Highest Praise Band, and they'll be back later on to give us some more music. But for now, welcome to the News Review on the Power Breakfast Show. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. It is the 8th day of September 2017. And if you're just like me, you've probably woken up wondering what is going on with the IEBC. Can we expect any more leaked documents today? Any more revelations as well? It is unbelievable what is happening right now. And to help me take a look at some of the events in today's papers, I'm joined by my panelists for the day. I'd like to introduce at this time John Kiarie, Member of Parliament, Dagoretti South. Welcome to the program, Weshimiwa.
Thank you for having me, Maura.
Thank you for waking up bright and early to be here with us. In addition, I'd like to welcome Omboka Milemba, Member of Parliament and Muhaya. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you so much.
And in addition, Mark Bichachi, familiar face here, political analyst. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you very much, Maura.
Indeed, gentlemen, before we even take a look at the headlines, I want to get your take. What is going on at the IEBC? You know, we've woken up today wondering what will happen today, but first I want to hear your take on what's happened over the last couple of days, especially yesterday, and I could start with you, Honorable Kiarie.
Well, Wahiga, these are interesting times in Kenya's history, and we've got to just observe everything that we are seeing in light of landmark ruling that was made by the Supreme Court. And what is happening, you can imagine the pressure that is on IEBC, being that everything that they have to do right now is under the glare of not only the media but the entire public. So everything that we see happening at IEBC, we've got to see it in that light, that they are the focus of the nation, and even worse, the focus of the media. So every single step they take is got to be seen in that light.
Okay, and Honorable Milemba, your take on what's been happening, especially yesterday?
Oh, I think it is just a sign that maybe we have to be patient and see what else will happen next, because after the ruling of the Supreme Court, and now that every attention is focused on the IEBC, and they are being expected to deliver a more credible election. There's turmoil now going on inside there, and maybe we need to be patient and see what else will happen. It seems that IEBC box has more than we thought was inside. So we shall be patient to see what else will come out of it.
Okay, being patient. I think we all need a bit of that. Mark?
You know, on that 17th of October, Wahiga, there is a third name on that ballot, and it will go unwritten. That name is the IEBC. Why is it on the ballot? The IEBC is going to be tested on its merit, on its independence, and its ability to reinvent itself for the sake of Kenya. That is definitely going to be on the ballot. And Chebukati and his team have to get their act together before that date. Now the question here becomes, we need to remember that such acts have a criminal element. So anyone in the IEBC will seek to defend themselves against a possible future criminal persecution against themselves, and that is jail time. That's the first part. The second part, there is political management. What is the political management? IEBC needs to come out and be shown to be dealing with the issues within itself that brought the issues during the election. However, this I find very funny. When we studied IT back in the day, there was something we used to call GIGO. It was garbage in, garbage out. If the process is the same, it will still bring out garbage. So in as much as you're dealing with the human resource, what are you doing to manage the processes within the IEBC such that you can be assured that whoever you put in that position, literate or illiterate, learned or not, they're able to deliver because the process is foolproof. That's the other thing they need to show us. But the management of the political side of it, because you know, leakages come out to create an impression. And
what impression do you think was being created this time around?
It's the impression to give the Kenyan people the thinking that the IEBC is self-sorting its issues, which is, by the way, some form of madness, because you cannot investigate yourself.
You cannot investigate your work. I'm going to come back to that statement. And of course, for those of you watching at home, you can weigh in on this discussion. Do you still have confidence in the IEBC to handle the upcoming polls, bearing in mind what's been happening, especially yesterday with that 12-point memo between Wafula Chebukati and Ezra Chiloba, talk to us. 22422 is our SMS line, and talk to us on our social media platforms as well, at Citizen TV Kenya. I'll go through your messages as and when I can. But let me take a look at the headlines, and I think the Daily Nation captured a lot of what is in Kenyans' minds at the moment. The headline is, Chebukati throws Chiloba under the bus. A rather informal headline. You know, throwing under the bus, I guess, is more informal English than formal. But nevertheless, it captures the thoughts of many after that leaked memo. And it reads as follows. The chairman's attempt to blame IEBC poll fiasco on chief executive runs into resistance by 4 out of 6 commissioners. Leaked memo exposes the turmoil and divisions within the electoral agency ahead of the October 17th poll. And of course, to get more details, you can turn to page 4, 5 and 6 of the Daily Nation. The headline on page 4 is IEBC fallout as Chebukati memo disowned. Let me just read the opening 2 paragraphs. 4 IEBC commissioners yesterday disowned a memo from Chairperson Wafula Chebukati blaming CEO Ezra Chiloba for the systemic flaws in the August 8th election, revealing the extent of turmoil and infighting within the agency. The 5 who disowned the memo on the grounds, and of course this number changed because we saw other responses by 2 commissioners at least, Paul Kurgat and Margaret Mwachanya, that they were not part of some of the correspondence we saw yesterday. Nevertheless, say that they had not met as a plenary to discuss the issues at the core of the annulled poll. Honorable Kiarie, after everything we are seeing, does the Commission have the confidence to carry out the next election, the capability as well? Where would you rank them at this moment?
Well, they're in a very precarious situation, and what I would call it...
You're trying to put it delicately, aren't you?
It is. When you think about it, Maura, as I said in the beginning, everything that happened with the Supreme Court ruling threw everything in a spin. And the people who are running the biggest risk here is IEBC. And the risk that they are running is the risk of self-cannibalizing as they are trying to justify everything that they are doing and trying to be good to everyone. If I was the one to give any advice to IEBC, I would tell them that they've got a bigger bone to chew. And the bigger bone that they have to chew is the preparation of the election on the 17th of October. Now, what is happening is that everyone called whatever happened a surprise. Others called it a coup. Others called it a revolution. And we know that there are revolutions that have a tendency of cannibalizing their own babies. And we wouldn't want IEBC to run into this mess. Because, as has been said here before, there are people who would be running scared, fearing that they're going to end up being prosecuted or ending up in jail because of some, what the court ranged from, mere irregularities, clerical errors, all the way to illegality that might have happened with the presidential election. But think about it this way. The people who are throwing the biggest stones at IEBC, they themselves have had to conduct processes, they've had to conduct elections, they've had to conduct nominations. And we know how the nominations within political parties have been in this country. To expect a near perfect election from anyone in Kenya would be to be expecting a near act of God.
So you don't think they've reached the point of no return? You think they can still salvage the situation, the body as is?
I think it is not. It is not a helpless situation.
Okay.
I think it is something that can be done, and what they might want to do is maybe not have this playing out in the full glare of the media. Not every step that they take needs to be reported as a headline. I think they need to...
It is our job, though, to report that.
At times we need to just look at the repercussions of some of the things that we do. You know the famous line that choices have consequences.
Yes.
We might end up, making the situation even worse with some of the actions that we take as a country. At the moment, I think that we've got something bigger on the table for Kenya. And the thing is to deliver a good, credible, fair election on the 17th of October. Because we are realizing that this weighs heavily on so many other things in the country.
Okay.
We are told that, from the ruling, from the date the ruling was made, the Nairobi Stocks Exchange, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, has had a loss of over 130 billion Kenya shillings. The transport sector was reporting a loss of 25 billion by yesterday. You can imagine the situation of even having a worse election on 17th, with a situation like the education situation, the crisis that is looming in this country. So I think it is in everyone's interest to support IEBC to be able to do what they are mandated to do.
Okay, let me bring in Honorable Milemba into this discussion as well. Mheshimiwa, how do we separate the institution that is the IEBC, because according to the Constitution, they are the ones that can run an election, and the individuals who, at this moment, both sides don't trust in terms of specific individuals within the IEBC? How do you separate the body itself from the individuals who run that body, some of whom may have a false from the previous election that we had on the 8th of August?
Thank you. I think the body is also the institution, and separating the two would be very difficult. And therefore, for me, I think the IEBC is losing it, or rather has lost it all. And if I borrow from the Bible, a man called Ayub one time says, "What I feared most has happened to me." And I think what we feared most has happened to the IEBC with the revelations we saw yesterday. For Ayub, it later involved...
By Ayub, you mean Job?
Job, thank you very much.
Yes.
Job, for that Job guy, God had to intervene directly to salvage his situation. For the IEBC, it will require God to intervene. Unfortunately, it could be God that is fighting the IEBC itself for the ills that it did during the election.
Are you speaking on his behalf?
So, for me, I think the IEBC is no longer having that credibility that one would say that it was having to carry out an election. Yesterday, I've been watching these programs a lot, and I saw one of the speakers on the national television, I think it was Tuju, compare what has happened to a football match. And I liked it. But I'll still also compare it to a football match. When a match is abandoned, the way this one is abandoned, you go to the next rematch, and the first thing you check is, who was the referee of the match? Was the referee qualified? Many a times we do change the referee, we change the venue, we change the match commissar, we change the linesman. So IEBC with these revelations, for me, it will be very difficult for it to have the credibility it required. Give the confidence of Kenyans that it can carry out.
Is there enough time to change the referee? You know how much time we have? We're talking about 38 days.
I was thinking about that yesterday too. And then I said there's the issue of the law and the constitution, and we are being told you must go to the field with the same referee. And that takes me to the issue of having some minimal consultations between the players in the field. That they must... When I last talked about the issue of consultation, I noticed not many people wanted consultation. But I was very happy by yesterday, both players in NASA and Jubilee were now agreeing they need to consult. I got surprised and even got happier when I heard one of the players, that was Tuju, say, "I've gone inside there to meet IEBC, but I've told them I'm not willing to meet you without the other group, because I want these things to be above the table." So I think the issue of consultation will be still very important if we have to do this thing within the timelines we have been given, and we are not within the timelines we have been given, so that both players feel like the playing field is...
Okay, let me bring Mark into this as well. Mark, of course, you're seated between two politicians, or next to two politicians. So you can assume that you know, depending again on their party affiliations, where they will stand on this. But for you, I want to find out from you again, capability, capacity to carry out these elections. Does IEBC have that? Have they reached the point of no return? Or can they still salvage this situation in light of what we saw yesterday?
The key here is process, process, process. It is a fool's errand that to realize that in the history of Kenya, from 2000 to date, every time we've had an election, we've removed the commissioners to the same result. Kivuitu went out and we complained in 2013. We took out the commission that was there in 2013, in 2016, and complained in 2017. So clearly, changing who is at the head of the IEBC is not the change we need to see. The change we need to see is a process change. What is that process change? Number one, consultation and inclusion as envisioned by our Constitution. Include Jubilee, include NASA. Respect the first letter in IEBC, independence. That's another critical thing. They need to come out and seem to be independent and non-partisan, absolutely. Number three, which again they've fallen into the same space they fell in before the election. Communicate, communicate, communicate. What is going on? What is your preparation? Yes, you've leaked us. FM was saying there are questions that need to be answered. But these 11,000 polling stations that could not transmit data, what have you done this time around? Let
me actually interrupt you there. Who do you think leaked that memo? Was it done intentionally? What's your take?
You know, in terms, and you and I have done our rounds in the media, the reality of the matter is...
You've done more than me, but nevertheless, go ahead.
There's always a leaker always has an intent, both internal and external, to influence the thinking of the people. Now, obviously, when you leak a document like this, the intention, number one, is to show that Chebukati is innocent. That's the first intention. The second intention is to lay blame on the office of the CEO. And it's a very clever ruse, because to get rid of a commission, that is a parliamentary and a governmental issue. To get rid of the CEO, that is an internal human resource issue. It's an easier thing, and he's the easier and faster sacrificial lamb, unfortunately for him. However, that being said, even if you get rid of the CEO, if the process remains the same, you've done nothing. And what the IEBC needs to do now more than ever is get ahead of the game and assure Kenyans of their independence and of the procedural changes that they've put in place to make sure that the data that is being transmitted is transmitted in real time and in the manner that has been prescribed by law and the IEBC's internal regulations.
In line with yesterday's leaked memo, if we go to the polls with the same body that we have right now, what is to stop anyone from going to court and questioning whatever result that body will deliver because of what we saw yesterday? Querying, you know, some of those issues and using that memo as part of proof. What is to stop anyone from doing that, Mark?
You know, the truth of the matter is this. If they change their processes, because if you remember the court case, NASA really filed a case that was about the procedural requirements for transmitting data. That is where the case was. Their case was also on a server, and the servers have been mentioned in this particular memo. Now, the reality of the matter, if the process remains the same, even if NASA wins, I can bet my top dollar that Jubilee will take it to court. So this is not a matter of a NASA case. This is a matter of national interest. That means it is also in Jubilee's great interest to make sure that the process is right. We can make sure the people are right, but if the process is wrong, it is still vulnerable. So if the process remains the same, and here's the most funny thing, Waiga, you remember when they said in court that the law has not prescribed how a Form 34 looks like? That may be all good and dandy, but the question is, if today you took to Ashira Waruru a leave form that you've printed from another media house, your leave will not be granted. That's the reality of the matter.
Okay, now you're making it personal. I'll come back to you. Honorable Kiarie, let's talk about Wafula Chebukati, who has not denied that leaked memo. There was a court case at the Supreme Court barely, about a week or so. He hired a lawyer to defend himself because he was one of the respondents to the petition. But at the same time, in the information that we see yesterday, doesn't it contradict what his lawyer was arguing in court? Why would the IEBC chairperson take us through that whole process, seek to defend himself in court, and then now, in this leaked memo, you can clearly see that NASA's concerns, at least some of them, were valid?
Well, Wahiga, I'll just refuse to be drawn into a discussion that I think the leaker of the memo wanted to get us into, and that's a discussion about personalities, and want to just focus a bit ahead on exactly what the big job is ahead of us as a country. And I think the big job is delivering a credible election on the 17th of October, or whichever other date the institution that's mandated by the Constitution is going to give. And to think about what has been thrown to us, which is a repeat of an election. We've got to see it differently from anything else that we have held before. When you think about the election of August 8th, it was an election where we were conducting 6 distinct elections in 47 counties in more than 290 constituencies in all those thousands of stations, and we're talking about over 44,000 stations across the country. If you compare the logistical enterprise of August the 8th and what is expected to happen on 17th of October, you will see that 17th of October is child's play. So we might not use the same parameters that we were using on August 8th to judge IEBC with what is going to happen on 17th of October. We've been in this situation before as a country, whereby everyone vilified the IEBC over an election, and then we ended up going into by-elections where IEBC was praised across board because of how well they conducted the elections. I'm seeing it as a lesser logistical problem or headache or enterprise on the 17th of October, and I would want to say that I'm fully convinced that we are able to deliver a credible election on the 17th of October with not as many errors as they were called, because we do not even know the extent of the errors until the full judgment is handed. All we are told is that they range from clerical errors to what it was broadly referred to as possible illegalities. So even as we judge the IEBC, we need to be knowing that we need the full information. We still don't have that.
Okay, we still don't have that. Let me read some of the SMSs that some of you are sending us. Remember, today we are asking you, after yesterday's leaked memo and what's been happening at the IEBC, do you still have confidence that they can manage a free, fair, credible election on the 17th of October, at least within the 60 days that Kenya has to hold that poll? Some of you here, okay, you don't give us your name, but to say, Chebukati is asking questions like an outsider. He was given the job because of his 2 decades career as an advocate. How can he start portraying as if he knows nothing about the events of the 8th of August? Susan from Kirinyaga, IEBC can do a good job if only politicians can stop putting them into confusion. Purity from Masinga, what would happen if elections are not held within the prescribed timelines? That's an interesting question which I believe many are grappling with. A constitutional crisis would happen if that was to take place. And finally, one last SMS here. You don't give us your name, but you say, to end misconduct of elections, someone must be jailed. No confidence. Honorable Milemba, I want you to respond to that one. Someone is saying, to end misconduct of elections, someone must be jailed. No confidence. Your response to some of those messages that I've read out?
Thank you very much. I first would want to, I don't believe usually in the idea of when you're having such a discourse, just attacking fellow panelists because you are in another party and the other one is another party. So, Mheshimiwa, I'm very sorry, I wanted to make some comment about the issue of logistics. Okay. The argument that logistics would be fewer and therefore the IEBC can now deliver a better result because of the fact that they are now handling one election, just presidential, like we had what was the banana versus orange. No, it was a very easy one. Would be wrong because the people who did what we are being told now did it intentionally. They did not do it because they were under pressure. When you look at the leaked memo, it shows very clearly that this was intentionally done by people who wanted to destroy this election, to do it in a way that it would disfavor one party and favor another party. Down with that, I would want to say that the real challenge that the IEBC then faces before Kenyans is its credibility, like you've said. I don't think if it goes on like this, and even up to where we are, the IEBC is now not a credible organization or body to hold the elections. Everybody, whether in NASA or Jubilee, would still question the results given what we are seeing. And on the issue of somebody being jailed, indeed, somebody will have to bear the cross here. What we are seeing from Chebukati doing is that he's trying to launder himself as the clean boy within a dirty system. But you know, ordinarily we know he's the head of this system. So when does he become clean alone and the other players become dirty? For me, I think it is one way of trying to launder himself to say, me, I'm clean. So you're not the blame is with Chiloba, and therefore we have to get some sacrificial lamb and remove it. But I would still stand with the fact that somebody must be accountable for what happened, because like Honorable put it, business is going to waste, time is going to waste, money is going to waste, because a Kenyan whom we believed in deliberately went and made sure that we cannot have straight elections and move on.
Honorable,
so they should be held accountable.
They should be held accountable. I'll come back to you on the other side of this break to carry on with this discussion. You're watching the Newspaper Review live on Citizen TV's Power Breakfast Show. Keep talking to us, of course, your take on matters IEBC on 22422 and our social media platforms as well at Citizen TV Kenya. On the other side of this break, we carry on taking a look at the big stories in the newspaper as well. And a bit later, we'll also be hosting an ICT expert to talk about some of the details of Chebukati's memo to Chiloba. What do they mean in terms of some of the points that Chebukati raised to the CEO, Ezra Chiloba? We'll have an expert to take a look at that and so much more on this